Hello and welcome back to Covenant of Love workshop. This will be the second episode where we'll be covering the history and origins of the Covenant of Love and its prehistory in the life of Father Kentenich. So history really connects with me because I feel like it connects with my own history. As I told you a little bit last time, I personally feel like in my faith journey, the Blessed Mother was always watching over me even before I actually made my Covenant of Love. In the life of Father Kentenich, as we'll find out in this class, the same thing was true from him from an early age, that he really felt that the Blessed Mother was his mother. And that history that he had with her was what led him to invite, ultimately, the Schoenstatt seminarians in the place of Schoenstatt, the Palatine Seminary where he worked, to make the Covenant of Love, the first Covenant of Love, on October 18th, 1914. Let's start with that prehistory. So, our Covenant of Love in Schoenstatt, as I'm saying, has a prehistory, and this was the consecration of Father Kentenich to Mary when he was a child. He was 8.5 years old. Now, his mother, Katerina Kentenich, at 22 years old, became pregnant without being married, which especially at that time was really difficult. And she really struggled to raise Father Joseph Kentenich when he was a child alone. The father, 44 years old, never wanted to acknowledge the child, and without an acknowledgement, it really left both of them kind of on the outskirts of society. So, for economic reasons, the mother worked as a live-in domestic worker, cooking and doing household chores, but young Joseph Kentenich was left in the care of his grandparents because she couldn't take care of him and do that job at the same time. And she worked to provide and to send money, but she didn't make very much money and it was very difficult. But living with his grandmother, she really instilled the faith in Joseph Kentenich as a child, and really the first origins of his faith life. But as his grandparents grew older, they felt they couldn't take care of him anymore, and Katerina herself, still with the difficult economic situation that she was living, had to look for a new place to send him. So, desperate, she asked her confessor for help, Father Augustus Savals, and he recommended an orphanage to her that he had founded and entrusted to some religious sisters. The orphanage was in Oberhausen, and around the time when he entered there, it's a very strict, disciplined place. Probably a place that influenced a lot who Father Kentenich was going to be in the future, because it was a place without freedom, a place without warmth. Very much everything by the rule, everything very orderly, somewhat mechanical, and you get to know Schoenstatt spirituality. Schoenstatt spirituality is very much about creating places that are warm and familial with the presence of God, places where people can freely be themselves. And I imagine what he suffered in this orphanage influenced the man that he became later in life. Now, when Father Kentenich's mother took him to the orphanage, they encountered a statue of the Virgin Mary, the one depicted here in this image. And out loud, his mother consecrated young Joseph Kentenich to the Blessed Mother and the statue. And as a gift and as a sign of that consecration, and that Catalina Kentenich was entrusting her child to the Blessed Mother to now be his mother, since she couldn't be there present for him, she took off her most precious physical possession, her only piece of jewelry, a gold cross and chain, and she put it around the neck of the Blessed Mother. It was a chain that her godmother had given her on her first communion. This moment for Father Kentenich, his remarks on later, is really the moment when he felt that the Blessed Mother became his mother. And through this difficult time in his life as a child living in this orphanage, he felt that it was the Blessed Mother who was his mother, who watched over him throughout all that time. Now, so this forms the seed of what would inspire Father Kentenich to lead others to the Covenant of Love and to form their own Marian consecration later in life. So, this first Marian consecration takes place April 12th of 1894. Something said is the seed of the Schoenstatt work in this moment of what the Blessed Mother begins to form in Father Kentenich, begins to form him to be her instrument, to lead others to her and to her son. And forms specifically the unique character of the covenant of love, of recognizing and surrendering to Mary as a child. A simple act, but like many simple acts, and in this case, one that would mark his life forever. Just as our covenant of love will mark our life forever as we entrust ourselves as children to the Blessed Mother. Now, the first covenant of love, as is known under that name, was made on October 18, 1914, in the place of Schoenstatt. The covenant of love was not the result of an apparition or divine inspiration, as some others would be. Many Marian shrines have a sort of supernatural origins, where the Blessed Mother appeared to a saint or certain person, and from that miracle or that apparition, graces began to be distributed and people began to come as pilgrims to that place. Now, that never happened with Schoenstatt. In that sense, it really was a leap of faith in which a young priest, Father Joseph Kentenich, discerning the signs of divine providence of what he felt called to do by God, encouraged to propose to some young seminarians his bold idea to make a covenant of love there. Now, Father Kentenich was a spiritual director in Schoenstatt, Germany, for a group of Palatine seminarians. At that time, it was common, if you wanted to become a priest, that you would go first to a minor seminary, which would be around high school age for kids nowadays. So you thought you might want to be a priest, you went off to the minor seminary and you did kind of your high school coursework before then after going to novitiate, in the case of the Palatines, and doing the upper seminary afterwards. I had a lot of difficulties with these kids at the time, and one of them being that it was a tumultuous time here before the First World War, and all of the same issues that Father Kentenich experienced at Oberhausen, of this lack of freedom, of a sort of rebellion that was beginning to take place in the students, that they felt that every part of their life was sort of rigidly controlled. Father Kentenich found a way to lead them to true freedom by giving themselves to the Blessed Mother and to God through the Blessed Mother, that by the free pursuit of sanctity he could help overcome that sense of rebellion against the seminarians' feeling that all of their freedom was taken from them and the very strict order of the house and the seminary. So, what are the voices of God that Father Kentenich heard that led him to believe that God was calling him to lead others to the covenant of love? Now, the voice of the times would be one of the four voices of God here. So the first voice of the time is that this group of seminarians that Father Kentenich was responsible are given a small chapel in July of 1914. Second one, on July 18, 1914, Father Kentenich reads an article by Bartolo Longo about the Marian Shrine of Pompeii. This really inspired him, the way that shrine had become such a place of pilgrimage. And then the third voice of the times was that the First World War breaks out on July 28, 1914. And Father Kentenich, remembering his Marian consecration, the way that had helped him to feel sheltered and taken care of, that bond with the Blessed Mother as his mother in that difficult time of his life, leads him to invite the seminarians there living in Schoenstatt to do the same thing. I want to go into these voices a little bit more here. So the first voice of God is they're giving this small chapel in July of 1914. There you can see some pictures of what it looked like before, what it looks like there in Germany. Now, the grounds where they were used to be an old convent. And in that convent's cemetery, there was a cemetery chapel. Now, this convent had been abandoned a long time ago, and then it became the seminary, and then this chapel was kind of abandoned and become kind of a tool shed for the garden. But with the formation of this group of seminarians that Father Kentenich is leading, they're given this chapel to make it be their own space. It was originally a chapel dedicated to St. Michael, but later, they decided to transform it, especially into a chapel dedicated to the Blessed Mother, with the image that we all know so well of the MTA. Now, on July 18th, 1914, Father Kentenich reads this article by Bartolo Longo. Now, in Pompeii, a lawyer named Bartolo Longo, who was a converted man, had built and dedicated this Marian shrine, but unusually, as I mentioned before, it was one that didn't have any apparition behind it or any special miracle, but rather a man that felt inspired by the action of the Holy Spirit in his heart, built this shrine, and it really became a place of pilgrimage for Pompeii. Inspired then by the fact that it was possible to take this initiative on your own to build a shrine, to build a place of pilgrimage, a place where people's lives could be transformed and encounter with the Blessed Mother and with God, Father Kentenich begins to ask himself if the same thing could be true for him and the seminarians there in Schoenstatt. The third voice of God is that the First World War breaks out on July 28, 1914. Obviously, a very difficult moment, one that he knows that many of the seminarians that he works with are going to have to go fight in this war. And they're high school age, but as soon as they turn 18, many of them are going to have to fight in the front lines as soldiers. And he starts to ask himself what he can do to help take care of them, to help prepare them for this difficult reality. And he turns to that experience that he had as a young child, when this consecration saved him in his inner life during those hard trials of his life in the orphanage, where Mary was a true mother to him in his great need. And he asks himself, wouldn't God want the seminarians to also experience that enormous gift of having Mary accompany them in the difficulties of war, to be their mother? Could it not also be possible for them to continue to strive for sanctity, to continue to try to be holy even as soldiers at war? And so, with these signs and voices, he feels called to take a leap of faith, that God and the Blessed Mother are calling him to invite these seminarians to make a covenant with her. And so, after meditating on the will of divine providence on October 18th, 1914, he proposes this secret favorite idea of his that he's carried in his heart. This bold idea to invite them to form a consecration with Mary and to dedicate that shrine there in Schoenstatt as a special place of grace dedicated to the Blessed Mother, just as that shrine in Pompeii was. Now, here are a couple quotes from the talk that Father Kentenich gave to the seminarians when he was proposing his idea. He says, would it not be possible for the chapel of our congregation at the same time to become our Tabor, where the glory of Mary is revealed? This chapel will be for us the cradle of sanctity, just as the Austin Shrine is called. And this sanctity will forcefully attract our Heavenly Mother, make her descend to us. Prove first to me that you truly love me and take your purpose seriously. The idea that in our gifts of love to the Blessed Mother, to the capital of grace, we ask and invite the Blessed Mother to establish herself in the shrine in a special way. In a similar way to she has taken her own initiative through apparitions and miracles in other places to establish some special places of grace and encounter with her, we also can invite her and God to come and dwell among us through our offerings of love, through our free invitation. Now, in every Schoenstatt shrine, there's a Latin phrase going around the image of the Blessed Mother. I've noticed it. It says, Servus Maria nunquam peribit. There's a quote from St. Anselm of Canterbury from the 11th century, which means, a child or a servant of Mary will never perish. Now, a young soldier from the seminary who was fighting World War I, Fritz Ezer, who was discharged with tuberculosis, carved that quote in wood and formed the frame of the MTA image in the original shrine, where it was dedicated at the end of 1919. And from there on, it was put in all the replica shrines that were built afterwards. Since that The Shinto seminarians, through the Covenant of Love, really felt that the Blessed Mother was watching over them, that she was there with them in the difficulties of war, and that they could continue to strive for sanctity even in such a difficult place. That grace from that consecration would help them through that moment. And many of them came back and they had war medals, and they dedicated them to the Blessed Mother. And many of them offered their lives intentionally to the Blessed Mother if they would end up dying in the war, and some of them who actually did. And you can go now, if you ever get the chance to go to Shenstad and visit the original shrine, you can see all of those lives and sacrifices from the war offered up to the Blessed Mother, memorialized in all the different black crosses on the wall. So I hope you've enjoyed the second class. I'm hoping you're finding this process of preparing for the Covenant of Love fruitful and full of grace, and I'll continue to pray for you in this process of preparation. Thank you very much. God bless.